Oh, I think it's terrible. I think it's awful. I think it's absolutely horrendous.
Wait a second. There's a penalty on the play.
Get ready for 2 hours of hard-hitting football talk from two men in the know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
Joining us on the phone, we have NFL prospect and future XFL player Jeremiah Spicer.
I don't know, man. I don't like to talk about myself like that, man.
Yeah. I told him if the Raiders took in Oliver, I was going to take him in the bathroom. He won twice.
Here's the last time I checked, I am God, so slow your roll. Slow your roll down.
What they say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes.
Welcome, everybody, once again to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the No Show, and this is self-titled Eli Manning Retires, everybody.
Retires, yes. It is a moment in history now. You know, Eli closes the door
Yep.
to another page here in NFL history. 16 seasons now to play for only one team. You know, that's one of
Which
the
is
dreams
really
he had.
remarkable.
And it's finally over after all of everything, the debate, the drama. Like, you know, we've had people bringing up last year, like, is he going to get traded to the Jaguars? Will he play for Coughlin again?
Right.
I mean, after all the turmoil, living in New York, playing for the New York Giants, and all the headlines and grief that he's faced, everything.
Right.
It's all finally come to a close after all
Yeah,
these
and
years.
a lot of questions were answered really quickly because we saw Tom Coughlin, you know, that whole rumor mill that was going on about Eli maybe going to play with the Jags. Then Tom Coughlin gets fired. And it was funny because there was only a few weeks left in that regular season, and apparently Tom Coughlin was ready to retire himself. They just didn't want to wait, apparently. But now Eli, everybody was kind of questioning, what is he going to do? We saw seeing the changing of the guard and them kind of throwing Daniel Jones to the wolves, really. Wasn't ready, still made the change after week 2. And unfortunately, because I really do think that the Giants, they had a legitimate shot in potentially winning that division, as porous as it was, if they left Eli Manning in there. You know, and waited for those weapons to return that were injured and not there. But Eli Manning, he decides not to go play for another team, and he said himself he wants to start if he was going to play somewhere elsewhere. And I think Eli Manning is such a loyal dude, and it's very rare. You never see this, where one player who was drafted by a said team stays with that same team. His not just stay with them for like 4 or 5 years, but his whole entire career, which lasted for 16 seasons. That's a very long time to play in this league. And Eli Manning was one of the coolest and greatest to do it, because not only did he play and grind out games, he is built like a tank, bro. Like, he endured a lot and still was healthy week in and week out. Unfortunately, that whole streak of game, every single game being played, he had a string of games, and it looked like he was going to break the record.
Yeah, he was
if he
on
kept
pace.
going.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, it was taken out of his hands. Thanks, McAdoo, for that.
Yes.
And now, you know, that kind of that record that Eli was actually, he was proud of. He was proud of being available to his teammates, always there for them, never giving up, never giving in. And one of the most prolific professionals in football, a great guy, and a phenomenal teammate in Eli Manning. And we wish him all the best of luck in his future endeavors. But he calls it quits, sadly.
And like here, it shows here the quote that he had. He said, Wellington Mara always said, once a giant, always a giant. For me, it's only a giant. And that's one thing that was very important to him throughout his whole career. And we heard when he was going to get drafted. Archie Manning brought up too that he was dead set. He was not going to play for the Chargers.
No,
they go and draft him anyways, but they had a deal worked out with the Giants. He didn't start one game or play. He didn't even step foot in San Diego. He went right to New York. That's where he wanted to go. He was dead set. I want to play for the Giants.
That's the funny part of that whole draft story is that he got drafted by the Chargers. There actually wasn't even a deal put in place yet. But the Chargers were extremely happy they're like, oh, he's there. Well, we got to take Eli Manning. That's our guy. We are super excited about it. And then Eli doesn't sound so pleasant on the phone. Sounded kind of standoffish. Really was kind of disappointed. And basically after a few conversations over the phone, said, I'm never going to play for you guys. You need to trade me. And he wanted to go to a big city type of team. And a pick. What was it? How many picks? Like 1 or 2 picks after that pick. The Chargers were picking, and they're like, "Well, Eli's gone." So, I'm sorry,
The
Giants.
Yep.
We're going to take the next best quarterback. We're going to take Phillip Rivers. That goes down, and then the Giants come call and be like, "Hey, listen, Eli," or the Chargers start calling around. And the Chargers start calling around trying to find a suitor, and then they're like, hey, you know what? Well, let's see if we can get a deal done here with the Giants. Giants took a quarterback, someone that we like. We really love Eli, but we like Phillip Rivers, and he's making it pretty clear he will not report to training camp. He won't show up and play for us. Let's try and see if we can get a deal. The deal gets consummated, and just like that, the same day of the draft, both quarterbacks who they thought they were going to have to play for those teams, they end up reversing roles and on opposite sides of the spectrum with those teams. And now you see what the history books have written for both of them so far.
Absolutely. And their paths have been followed along the whole way. I mean, that draft class, even with Ben Roethlisberger, all these guys have been followed throughout their whole careers now here, coming up together and always compared to one another as it goes on, too. You've got the analytics and people that come up and say, what if Eli did play for the Chargers? Would they still have pulled off some Super Bowl wins? Would Phillip Rivers have won more Super Bowls for the Giants as their starter?
I think, to be honest, my honest opinion, I think if Rivers was with the Giants, I still think they win at least 2 and possibly 3.
Possibly 3, yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, who knows?
He's a little bit different of a quarterback than Eli, so who knows? I mean, his trash talking's epic. It's just
absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah, he's definitely got the attitude, but who knows if he would be able to take the media, though, because he doesn't kind of hold back in a sense. He'll tell you what's on his mind. That's the one thing that was great about Eli, though, too, is because, despite, these guys have never really given him a fair shake. When he first started out, he had some rough patches, and yes, throwing some interceptions here and there. He's learning. But, always the fans still would, give him, grief or whatever, and throughout it all, he was just calm and collect, stayed to himself, always never pointed fingers at anybody.
No,
he always put
never.
it all on himself and said, well, I have to do better. I'm the head of this team. We need to get it together. And an upstanding New Yorker now. He considers himself a New Yorker.
Yeah, and
even though he's this kid from Ole Miss, played there where his dad did. That's what he wanted to do. But then, coming through to be a big market, like you said, and be this quiet guy and excel and not get in the trouble that some of these other diva wide receivers or other people that we've seen come in and out of New York and pull it off and be well-liked by even towards the end of it by a lot of fans.
Yeah, and he's quite the leader. That was a big thing for him is he definitely commanded the huddle. He definitely earned his trust and respect from his teammates, no matter who was on the roster every single season. And what a phenomenal leader, phenomenal person. And one of the biggest questions that some people have is he worthy of joining the Hall of Fame? And there's a big debate now saying, well, is Eli Manning a first ballot? Is he a second ballot? Does he belong in the Hall of Fame? Well, we have some numbers here that we want to show you. Eli Manning right here with his career stats.
Yeah, and then everybody, the one argument which I don't get to, which is ridiculous, is, well, he has a 500 winning percentage.
Mm-hmm.
All right, how many teams did he have that was really elite? And they say quarterbacks can put the team on their shoulders and drive them into winning and stuff like that. But you've got to have a lot of other things going on too as well. How many years did Jerry Reese squander his career at times too with bad
terrible
drafting here and there? We looked at his wide receivers, the touchdowns he'd thrown to people, and Odell Beckham Jr. was leading it all, and he only had him only a couple of years there. So that goes to show you how far along everything has gone here with Eli Manning and who he had to really throw it to. Jeremy Shockey, it comes to name even too. Amani Toomer still only had 15 yards here. But these are your names. Yeah. You look at other people. We have looked through
Mario Manningham.
But if you look at through, we'll say the Hall of Fame, Steve Young had Hall of Famer wide receivers to throw to. He was still throwing to Jerry Rice at one point. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Joe Montana, same thing. Still, even in Tom Brady in his career, he's been able to throw to Randy Moss.
Right.
And Rob Gronkowski is a Hall of Famer. I mean, you've had these other elite guys that he has not had, and you had the transitional times to where Bill McAdoo was showing him, first of all, how to change his stance here, and back there instead with a different foot, different throwing motion. Get these other younger guys to understand the playbook when the top three receivers were injured for 80% of the season to get these other guys on page, and you're not getting the connections.
Yeah, they had guys that are pulling off the street.
There. And, trying to come back to find that running game after you lose your dual threat of Ahmad Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs here that you've had in the past, things like that. Haven't had a good running back, even solid, since Tiki Barber. Even he was only solid for, say, a year and a half at peak.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
After he fixed his fumbling issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look back at his stats again. And like I said, people want to argue the 500. I think wins do not determine a great quarterback.
Here's a problem that I have with the whole record thing. That's a team stat.
Yeah, it is.
There's no doubt about it. You got to have a good defense. You got to have your offense working on all cylinders. You got to have good people around your quarterback. Your quarterback's got to be good. There's a lot that goes into the just winning and losing. It's the ultimate team sport. So for that to be what people are critiquing about Eli Manning, I'm sorry. You could go ahead and make arguments up and down the Hall of Fame list and say, well, this guy should get in because, he didn't have anything and he got these stats. Or this guy should not, this guy should get in because he had all these weapons and that's why he has these inflated stats or something like that. And that's the argument that some people have, but come on, that's a team stat. You can't go by that. It's just like going by how many Super Bowl wins did he have. That's another team stat. Like you see a lot of times that kind of gets thrown into the mix when people are having an issue between a couple of players, maybe 3, 4, 5 players. And they're like, well, how many Super Bowls did he win? How many Super Bowls did he win? It's almost like a coin flip, and they're just like, hey, well, that guy won 4 Super Bowls when he was in his career. That guy's won 2. Let's give the guy with the 4 Super Bowls in. Why? Because his team got him there? It's never one individual. So when they bring up the Super Bowl thing, when they bring up records and stuff like that, no. It's about individual success in the league and long term, not short. Not you played for the league for 5 or 6 years and now, well, he had good stats between those years. But he didn't have a long career. He had a short career. So why does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Is about legends. It's about legends that played the sport. Stats that kind of pop your eyes out of your head when you look at them. You look at Peyton Manning, you look at Tom Brady, you look at Drew Brees' stats, and you're like, holy crap. These guys balled out and had long careers. Those are the guys that deserve to be there.
Absolutely. And if some people want to use it as a deterrent, though, too, or when they say, Super Bowl champion 2 times here, that's fine. But he wrote that on the defense. And that, like you said, Super Bowl, championships aren't won by a team. So you can't, they say that that's the only way that could propel him into the Hall of Fame,
right? Which
I disagree with again, because you look at the games consecutive that you've been able to play. He, despite even finger injuries, getting clocked in the face and putting his, teeth through his lip, bleeding and multiple things, staying out there and still playing despite that,
Playing through the pain.
getting through and still have a completion percentage over 60%. The amount of touchdowns he has is up there in the charts. Less interceptions than Peyton Manning and a few other Hall of Famers that are in there. And he's 7th overall in passing yardage, and his rating is still an 84.1. And if you want to even add in other accolades, he's got his Walter Payton Man of the Year award. And even this year, to show voted in by players to show absolute leadership in the family, at home, and on the field, and amongst the team. He gets the Athletes in Action Award, Bart Starr Award, this season here on his way out. I mean, this guy just shows you what a football player should be all around.
100%.
And to add to it, what it helps me too is, what do you want to see out of some of those players that have that it factor? Big plays. You can't tell me in the Super Bowl he had historic big plays.
Definitely.
And that he did, like when that play with the David Tyree, he's getting wrapped up by 2 to 3 guys, Patriots. It is just about, you think it's going down.
One guy actually has the best shot at him. He actually grabs his jersey and holds on tight. And he was able to just break that guy's grip loose just to have a shot at throwing that ball.
And throws it with accuracy right to where the receiver
only
could
the receiver
could catch it. Where he could
Yep.
catch it. And David Tyree, he made David Tyree famous.
Absolutely.
And that's another key.
Yeah.
When you can make somebody
better.
famous.
Yep. When you make somebody
like that,
better. Yep.
There you go. That's another it factor
And
that people overlook.
And that's a crazy thing is David Tyree would drop everything. He was known for dropping balls.
He was a third stringer or
yeah.
so.
So when he was receiving that ball, can you only imagine how hard his heart was pumping? And for him to make not only just
with
the
Rodney
catch,
Harrison all over him.
Oh yeah, draped all over his back, and not only for him to just make the catch, which is a success all in itself, but a very difficult catch, one that doesn't really happen ever. One-handed against his helmet, that's insane, and for him to hold on to it all the way through, pretty amazing play. That play right there is going to be one for the history books of the NFL. That is never going to be going away.
And 42 game-winning drives to combine on top of that, too. Again, when the game's on the line, he steps up.
So, Jim, I got a couple of questions here for you, and I wanted to. You brought up interceptions, and all that. But here's a couple of names, and you tell me if they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame or not. Eli Manning has 244 interceptions in his career. Okay. Does Peyton Manning belong in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, absolutely.
His brother.
Yeah, absolutely. I swear, and again, we don't like to talk about greatest of all time, but in my mind, I would have to put Peyton Manning right there, greatest of all time.
I agree. Dan Marino.
Dan Marino, yes.
Johnny U.
Yes.
Fran Tarkenton.
Yes.
Brett Favre.
Yes.
Now, those are just a few names that we listed off. Guess what? Eli Manning actually has less interceptions than all those huge names that people claim that are definitely Hall of Famers, right? Let's go to touchdowns.
In a league of passing.
Right. Let's go to touchdowns. Eli Manning has 366 touchdown passes, okay? Well, Aaron Rodgers is currently just behind him. He's going to definitely pass Eli now.
Him, yes.
But Fran Tarkenton again. Is he a Hall of Famer, right? Yeah?
Yes.
John Elway?
Yes.
Warren Moon?
Yes.
Johnny U?
Yes.
Joe Montana?
Joe Montana, yes.
That's right. You like that, huh?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Eli Manning has more touchdowns than all of those guys. Those are just a few names. Let's go to yards, passing yards, right? Everybody loves the passing yards, throwing it up and down the field, that sort of thing. So Eli Manning has just over 57,000 passing yards. Okay? Let's say John Elway, we've already said, is a Hall of Famer. Guess what? Elway has less passing yards. Warren Moon, he's got less passing yards. Fran Tarkenton, less passing yards. And then you got Dan Fouts. Dan Fouts is a big name. A lot of big Charger fans know who he is. He's got less. Eli Manning's got more than those guys. Now, those are just a few names. I mean, you can it's a laundry list of names, but you can look at it. But those are just a few stats on the reasons why we think Eli Manning absolutely, positively deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He is one of the best of the best. And not only that, he was a phenomenal teammate, phenomenal leader for his team. For him to make guys like the likes of David Tyree, a receiver that people are going to remember, not necessarily for his career. They're going to remember that play that he made. You know what I mean? Mario Manningham. Does anybody remember in the Super Bowl when Eli Manning, I mean, I've never seen a more accurate throw than the throw that Eli Manning made to Mario Manningham running down the sideline where only Mario Manningham could get it, and Mario making a phenomenal play, keeping 2 feet in and stretching full length to catch that ball. That was an amazing play. That's another one of those great plays that Eli Manning helped make happen. And the list goes on and on. And you look at the receiver. We looked at the receivers briefly, but there's guys like Hakeem Nicks. There's guys like that just
your top
they're
three
just not
touchdown receivers were Odell Beckham Jr.,
right,
Plaxico Burress, and it was Victor Cruz. I think you know. I mean, it's like that's your top three, just about. You know, I mean, that's if you're looking at your top
but
three.
Then you
your
look
whole
at his
career. You're throwing.
You look at the rest of his career.
Yeah,
and their names that you're like, who the hell's that?
19. There was 58 different guys that he has thrown a touchdown to, and 19 of them were 1 year guys. They were just there, one and done.
Just there, yeah.
Don't even know their names. Most people wouldn't be able to know them unless they were a Giants fan.
Yeah, and this is the craziest thing is the crazy stats that Eli Manning put up in a short amount of time. Because even games played. He's got low games played compared to some of these legends that are already in the Hall of Fame. Just imagine if Jerry Reese got his head out of his ass and put together a team, a really well-rounded team around Eli Manning, they wouldn't have just won 2 Super Bowls. If he reestablished that offensive line when it got weak, if he added to the weaponry around Eli Manning, and then, of course, trying to keep that defense stout, or at least average, Eli Manning could have quite possibly won 4 or 5 Super Bowls. It's not that crazy. Some of you people out there may be like, "Oh, you're smoking something." Yeah. No, seriously. Look at what Eli did. Eli won 2 Super Bowls with really no talent. I mean, I say no talent, but everybody's got a little bit, right? But Eli made these guys better. These guys probably wouldn't even have made it onto some teams' rosters. And he made them not only decent players, but Super Bowl champions. I'm sorry, but I think that's a legend, and he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, and
no
for
doubt.
him even to want to just play with one team for his whole career and call it quits now, that's a big part of it too. Like you said, the games, he's had a lot of consecutive games started, but overall low in some of them, seeing he's calling it quits now to some that want to keep stretching their career out and keep playing and make a roster. He's just looking to take the higher road, say, listen, I've done it, I'm healthy. You know, I'm out. I got to play with one team. That's what I wanted. Yeah, I'm a legend here for New York, and that's it. And you know, trying to keep going because he could keep getting his yards up and keep going further in the books. He could
pad his stats easy.
You know, keep going. You know?
Absolutely.
But, you know, despite all that, he can walk away, and it goes to show you on some levels on what certain moves around the NFL could do to your career. Look at Steve Young. Steve Young was a Canadian football player, star. Then went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and wasn't panning out. So they go and make the trade to the 49ers. Now that trade alone has set in motion Steve Young's career all together, and now his legacy. All depended on that one trade, and he goes to the 49ers to mentor underneath Joe Montana. And just the fact they were able to utilize his legs a little bit too, and being a lefty, and again, not crazy stats here. We've looked at Steve Young's stats.
His stats are
blowing you off the charts here.
His stats are this,
but he is all in the Hall of Fame here. And when you start saying some of these guys' names and looking at it, it makes you just question it a few times.
Oh, absolutely. Because here you go. You got Steve Young right here, 33,000 passing yards for his whole career. What did we say about Eli Manning?
57,000.
Okay. Now let's look at touchdowns. As I just lost my spot.
Well, I'm sure it's about
touchdowns. 232 touchdowns. 107 interceptions. It's not really good, right? Eli Manning, 366 touchdowns, 244 picks. I'm sorry, but Eli Manning deserves to be in.
Yeah.
Steve Young's in there, and there's plenty of other players that have big names that are already in the Hall, but don't have better stats than Eli Manning.
Right. And the one other name that really boggles me always is I always thought about he's a New York guy. Again, it is Joe Namath. Everybody loves Broadway Joe. He had the swagger. Maybe that's the effect it has. Joe and I have talked about this. It's the writers, like you just said, who I like, is going to get in, because he was good with the media, whatever. Joe Namath, yes, he did win a Super Bowl with the Jets. Maybe it is because he called his shot, said, we're going to go in
guaranteed to win.
We guarantee to win.
Yeah.
He pulled it off, sure. And at the time, he was a little different look of a quarterback than the norm for some guys here. But
Right.
overall, if you look at his overall package of his career, it's not that impressive to me.
Yeah, let's just talk about it for a second. 27,000 passing yards. All right, to be accurate, 27,663 yards. 173 touchdown passes. Now get this. He's got more interceptions than touchdowns. He's got 220 picks he's thrown.
How does that happen? And you're in the Hall of Fame and you have more interceptions than touchdowns. You would be eaten alive these days by people. I'm doing that with Marcus Mariota now. And look, he got taken over his career, lost his starting job by Ryan Tannehill this season. So this is what we're talking about here. And not to even take some things away. Yes, he is a former Super Bowl champion, and I can't take away something that Joe Namath has done. But if you want to put somebody like this guy in, but you have a big argument with Eli Manning for some reason. It's just hard to wrap my brain around it, and the fact that it's a debate really bothers me. And
it's
the fact that we have to do
utterly
something
ridiculous.
Like this. But so Eli Manning. He retires. He goes out the way he wanted to, I think. I still think it was a little short, and he probably he still had more in the tank.
Oh,
absolutely.
He
could show that he did. But he also is very busy with stuff outside of football, does his camps with his brother and stuff still, too, and things. And, God bless him, and I'm thankful for everything he's done because I'm a New York Giants fan, and I think everything. And I watched those Super Bowls, and it was intense. And, and there you go. I mean, it's a long-lived career. For 16 seasons to do it, and
did anybody really
class.
have a concern that he was going to actually play elsewhere? I mean, this guy has been so ingrained in the New York community, and he's lived there his whole career. Why uproot everything right now and move away and try to start something new and learn a new offense and all the other things? I think Eli knew his ending was coming soon, but he did not want to continue and end it somewhere else. He wanted to keep it right in the heart of New York, the Big Apple, a true New York Giant, and we wish him all the best in his endeavors.
Absolutely. There you go. Eli Manning, again, the quote at the end of his retirement ceremony, Wellington Mara always said, once a Giant, always a Giant. For me, it's only a Giant. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys next time.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday night for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.